We'll call the Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah, we're good now.
Well, thank you. We've come to that time of the meeting and we open it up for public comments. Anybody wishing to address the Board of Commissioners on a topic that's not on the agenda would please come forward, state your name.
My name is Karen Johnson-Leitner, 15735 38th Street, Mare, Minnesota. I'm not representing Hollywood Township Board, Carver County Board of Commissioners, Carver County Attorney's Office, or Carver County staff. I am a relevant public watchdog. I'd like to make a statement today. For more than a year, I've been coming to this and been on videotape questioning actions that was done by the Carver County government, what they've all done wrong, how certain people got better deals than other people, how they weren't going to protect the citizens of Hollywood Township with the radio tower of 100,000 watt FM, proving now that the people are dead, that you would choose to be silent instead of protecting the citizens. My suggestion would be that if you had something that I was wrong on, I was lying about, or whatever it is, you would definitely send out a cry and say, Karen, you're wrong. You're not telling the truth. But those days and those years have gone on and on and on, and nobody's brave enough to actually tell us, Commissioner Ishii, Commissioner Degler, and Commissioner Hemze, you've got a lot of secrets. You've got a lot of things that you should have told John Linder, no, but you aren't telling them. So what I'm saying is to everybody that watches this video, I'm telling the truth. I'm protecting the people. I am standing up here as a good citizen, and I am saying there is more things going wrong, and solar is one of them. What you need to understand is yesterday I pulled up the Hollywood Township agenda, and there I saw broadband, which is Anthony Will. And there he is again. I don't know what he was doing out in Hollywood Township, but I'm sure it has something to do with the cancer stick. Frontier is trying to put in high-speed internet in our area. They're a real business. They hire people, they give people vacation, they actually do insurance, health insurance for people. And they're desperately trying to get to the citizens so they can take care of them. But this cancer stick keeps on having antennas put on there at broadband, Jaguar, and I understand the emergency communication, but you need to stop. This is not Carver County Corporation, this is Carver County government, and you need to stand up for the people in Hollywood Township. If Anthony's on there trying to get more antennas on the cancer stick, it's full, 10 antennas on the lease. That's what's on the lease. And in Carver County, I wish our Commissioner Tim Lynch would wake up to the fact that he should be protecting us instead of he was out in meetings with Carver County Attorney James Keeler, and this Steve Taylor doesn't work anymore. There he sat wanting to get more antennas on there, wanting the deal done. I have the information about stories. Carver County, Hollywood Township reach a tower agreement. That's a lie. It was a war. It was a fight. Nothing was being done right. And so in other words, just because you can print something doesn't mean it was the truth. The citizens were out there fighting. On my last statement, I'm going to say Jim Burns, Becky Burns, and Steve Burns put us on felony police reports. And the crazy part about it is there was a subcommittee, and I got a phone call saying, you better get over there. It was like in 2010, and here it ended up. The same people that put us on felony police reports were on that subcommittee. Nobody else in Hollywood Township knew about it. So in other words, you guys, quit hiding your lies. I'll be back here at 4 o'clock. Next time you have a commissioners meeting, next time you have a work session, because the work sessions are where you pull this off on the people. My name is Karen Johnson-Leitner. I don't want to be here, but I'm a relevant public watchdog, and you better be prepared on solar. What you've done with the Rural Service District, you can say that's where they belong. That's another lie.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, question.
Commissioner Ishii.
Mr. Hemze, doesn't Hollywood Township own that tower? Or did we buy that and I'm unaware of it, or what's?
Yes, sir.
They own the tower, right? That's what I thought.
That is, I get
And the
this.
Burns family, do they work for our sheriff's department or our attorney's department, or how do they put felony charges on folks. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Minister Hemze.
Can the average citizen charge someone with a felony, or how does that work out?
Mr. Metz, can you?
No, the county attorney's office has the only authority, and any citizen can report a crime, and the sheriff's office investigates, and that's their role, or the Chaska Police Department investigates, so.
I
Thank
get to
you.
bring
Yeah,
up the
I
fact
appreciate
that a
that.
felony police report, you cannot get your name off a felony police report or any police report.
I think
So
we're
in other
basically-
words,
The
Thank
time
you
is
very
up,
much.
actually.
and Mr. Commissioner Ishii, you're still doing your game about, like, you got your great comments and
I think
stuff,
the
but what
I
you
think
did
we've
was,
got enough time.
Your gavel.
you know what, I want to thank you for bringing up what you did, Commissioner
Thank
Ishii,
you.
just proving what you do to
We
people.
appreciate your.
I want off those felony police reports, because you know why? You
We
put them on us.
Can't really hear, we
Time
can't
is
really
up.
address that.
Okay,
issue
Mark
right now.
Metz.
Thank you.
See, that's what I mean, you guys. Watch out, if you live in Carver County, the boys will take
Yep.
care of you.
Anybody else wish to address the board this morning?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Ishii, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by, second by Commissioner Lynch. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the proposed agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, the approval of the minutes of the June 19th regular session.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Maluchnik, second by Commissioner Workman to approve the minutes of the June 19th. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, community announcements. Anybody have a community announcement? Commissioner Maluchnik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I wanted to announce about the flags in our, the group, I believe you've done some work with the flags in honor of Minnesota Car and Bike Show on Saturday, August 11th here in Chaska at City Park. And the proceeds from that car show goes to help veterans, needy veterans in our county. So we would hope that people can support that. Also, we have the Military Assistance Council for Veterans, who's going to be doing some work here in Carver County, is going to have, along with our friends at the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, which you're a member of, Mr. Chairman, we're going to have a golf tournament on August 30th, and we can provide information to folks, and that's going to be a shotgun at Deer Run course in Victoria. So we have information about that if folks are interested, and that's going to help, again, veterans who are homeless or need transitional housing is the goal for that organization. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, two worthy events that deserve our support. If anybody is able to, that would be very nice. Any other community events? Commissioner Lynch.
If I could, I'd like to invite everyone up to Mare on this Saturday, the 14th, for the Mare Rising Festival. They have a wonderful car show, crafts, and it's a good time had by all. And also 2 Rails to Trails in Watertown on July 20th and the 21st, with the parade being Saturday morning, the 21st at 11 a.m., I do believe. And I'd also like to welcome our compadre back. He had he had some surgery, and he's back here, and his wonderful nurse, his wife Pam, said he's not the best patient, but he's here, and everything's going well. So welcome back, sir.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Commissioner Ishii was not able to make the last meeting because just a minor open heart surgery, and he is recuperating very well. It's only been, what, 20 days, 2 weeks?
26 days today, I think it is, yeah. So, not that I'm counting.
I think Pam's the one that's actually counting.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to
Mr.
have my
Chairman,
wife taking care of me, but
Commissioner Maluchnik.
I would support a resolution making Mrs. Ishii a saint. If we could do that. send
rightly
that
so.
out.
She deserves all the help she can get.
That's right.
We're very happy to have Commissioner Ishii back with us. I know it's been a toll on you physically. You've been battling this for quite a while, and time actually came now to replace a valve in the heart, a tricuspid valve, if I remember right, and
Yep.
it's a very delicate surgery. And what do they replace it with? You want to explain it to everybody?
Well, if you hear me snorting once in a while, they put a hog valve in my heart.
We would go with that.
They hoped to repair the tricuspid valve, but it was too far gone, and as Commissioner Degler said, I've been dealing with it for about 15 years down at the Mayo. They've been watching it, hoping that the day would come when they could replace it going either in your arm or groin or whatever, but that's not the case. Like she said, my cardiologist said it's not ready for prime time just yet, so they had to do it the old-fashioned way, which is a little bit more of a struggle, but
So you've got the scar to prove it.
I had open heart surgery 39 years ago, excuse me. And this was probably 10 times easier than it was back then, so they've got it. I had this heart valve replaced down at Abbott Northwestern, and they've got it down to a science, pretty much. So it's gone well. My wife keeps close tabs on me and takes very good care of me, and had a chance to get relieved of her babysitting duties of some of our grandchildren over the summer here. It worked out very well, so
Again, we're happy to have you back, and hopefully this will provide many decades more of good, healthy living.
yeah, if we get a couple out of it, I'd be happy, but yeah. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Like Commissioner Lynch mentioned, this is the summertime. There's a lot of events going on. Chanhassen just had their 4th of July parade, but I just want to mention now, Chaska River City Days is coming up the end of the month, the 27th through the 29th in City of Chaska here. Fun for all. And on a more, you might say, important day, primary is August 14th. You can get your absentee ballots now. You can either vote here at the courthouse or up in the city of Waconia. There's also voting places up there. Any other community announcements? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a number of items on the consent agenda. This morning, I will not read through them. Does anybody have anything they want to pull? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent?
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Ishii.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lynch to approve the consent. Any discussion on any items? All in favor of approving the consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to item 6.1, the Waconia Event Center operations. We have Mr. Marty Walsh, our Parks Director there. Mr. Walsh.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the County Board. We are here today to talk a little bit more about the Waconia Event Center. We'll touch base on a few items here. We will, again, just mention briefly about kind of an interim operations plan and what has caused us to talk about interim operations.
Could you turn on our monitors, please?
If Bill's back there, Bill can do it.
Yep,
There we
they
go.
just can't.
There
Thank
we
you
go.
very much.
Okay. All right. The town hall model, which is the direction that the county board had provided us back in March. And then we have a number of recommendations and next steps as we kind of go forward here, and then ultimately some discussion and action at the end. So one of the things that's changed over the last few months here is through the legislative process, we were successful at securing $1.5 million for Waconia Regional Park through the state legislature. That $1.5 million is to be matched with $1.5 million of county resources for about a $3 million project, which will really lead us to what I'll say is some pretty significant work there at the park. So that money is going to be used for planning and of course, specifications, site grading, utility work, roadways, and parking is how the legislation is crafted. That'll be some pretty significant disruption to service inside the park. So roads may be impassable at times, utility services for sure will be interrupted. And then the landscape in the park is really going to change when we go through and do really kind of some massive grading work. The other direction here that was provided by the county board again back in March was for us to move over to the town hall model, which is a community-oriented model, requires minimal staffing, it transitions the building to operate like other county facilities. Things have changed. We used to have a business that operated within the ballroom facility. That no longer is happening, and the property has gone tax exempt. The county will provide more operations and maintenance services at that building as compared to working under a kind of a business model. And just to kind of follow up, we did pursue another tenant in the building. Went through an extensive RFP process and then also followed up with a number of folks individually at the site. We just could not find a business model that would work. So what we're talking about here in terms of the town hall model and an interim approach, given that we do expect that we would have construction maybe as early as next summer in the park, that beginning here in July, that we begin taking reservations for the building under the town hall model. Through about July of next year, we would hope, our goal would be to begin construction activities August of next year in the park. So that'll allow us some time to keep the park open, as well as continue to utilize the facility there. Things do change with regards to the customer. So the customer has a much stronger role in the town hall model. They are the event manager. They arrange for the facility, tour of the facility and meeting with staff. They complete the application and submit it. They coordinate all the service and logistics that are a part of the event. Our responsibilities as a county gets to be the application process. We coordinate the event and staffing and security. We look at our building operations and preparation to make sure the site is ready. And we have a post-rental checkout with the customer. They'll be responsible for some tasks, making sure that the vast majority of cleanup and things that need to be put back in place are done by the customer. Of course, we will have custodial care, and then finally invoicing and payment. So and I would say this is kind of the proposed 2000 fee schedule amendment, and this is in draft form as we continue to work with our finance department on the fees. We would have a new fee schedule for the building, roughly $2,000, which covers the direct expenses, utilities, services, and staffing. Would also cover such things as security, and we may have an early event setup fee identified there as well. The additional services, though, that a customer may want, if they want linens, if they want music, things of that nature, that's something that's all coordinated by the event service, I should say the renter. And to implement the fee schedule, we do have to go through a public hearing process, and we're targeting August for that public hearing. We do have to send out a notice, and that'll likely take us into August. So moving forward here again, with regards to July of this year through July of next year, we'd be implementing the town hall model. We would amend the 2018 fee schedule to accommodate the new fee structure for the event center. We would authorize bookings for the event center between now and the end of July of next year. We'd utilize the existing funds on hand for the Waconia Event Center, purchase tables and chairs out of those funds, and continue to operate the building out of those funds. For 2019, there would be a budget amount just for the building of about $20,000 to cover the cost for utilities and other hard services. Again, moving on forward with recommendations and next steps. Again, the time period between now and January of this year, we would propose that we do a building study. We complete a phase 1 building analysis with the existing facility, looking at it both architecturally and running it through what I'd say is kind of the mechanical and other systems, if you will, for the building, heating systems. And then we would also do market research and community engagement with the public. So the existing facility, again, would be analysis and assessment, both architecturally as well as mechanically. We do a multidisciplinary, again, architect engineering report, and then the market research behind that to support the building, if you will, what the decision will be for the building. The funds would come from our Parks Professional Service account, and then we report back to you after we completed that. And then you could decide to go on further if you wanted to go with the phase 2. So the phase 1 is preliminary investigation work. That'll lead us to a decision point as to whether or not we want to go forward with additional services. Again, beginning in July of this year, going through January, we talked about the construction program. So we need to do additional project scoping work. What will the $3 million cover? And so we'll report back to you also in about January as to what the scope of our full activities will be in the park. About March of next year, we would propose that once we have all our information, we discuss a new or revised operation plan for the Waconia Event Center. We would take a look at the proposed building program, and then also take a look at the park element as well, what's proposed. And so with that, Mr. Chair and members, I open it up for discussion and any questions you may have.
Okay, questions from the county board. I'll start with saying we received a $1.5 million grant from the legislature. That has to be matched by 1.5 county dollars. Of that, any of that money, can any of that money be used for the structure itself?
Mr. Chair and members, to my knowledge is no. It cannot be. It was very specific as to what they were willing to support. They indicated they were supportive of the infrastructure, utilities, roadways, parking lot, site grading. Those are the elements that are specifically mentioned in the legislation.
Okay, I just wanted you to repeat that, infrastructure, site development, and that kind of stuff surrounding
Yeah.
the park.
That's correct. It does not do any buildings in the park area.
Other questions for Marty at this point? Commissioner Lynch?
Marty, how did we come up with the daily rental fee of $21.45?
2145 is what I would say initially kind of building analysis, and now that's being supported by what our direct costs are to operate the building. So it's staffing costs, it's a look at what the utility costs are, it's custodial cost, it's security, it's the basic elements, it's some time represented with regards to us taking the client out to the site and showing the facility. Those are the general costs.
A follow-up on that question, we usually set our fee schedule in the end of the year. Is this set in stone now, or is this what people can anticipate already from July through the end of the year, or is this gonna take place next year?
Mr. Chair, I would believe that this would be, once we set this, it would also be reflected in the 2019 fee schedule going forward. So as an interim approach, we have a fee schedule, but from a look at it, at this point in time, we would not propose that we change it in December when the county board adopts the other fee schedule. So it's likely that what we set here in August will continue through July of
If
next year.
somebody came to rent the facility in August, September, this is probably what they could anticipate.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, just clarification on that. I thought we had to do another meeting with a public hearing and then adopt that fee schedule.
Yes, and so Mr. Hemze is correct. So what we have out there right now, I'd say is a draft number. Today you're not approving the fee schedule.
That will be coming through a public hearing process.
That's
As soon as we can.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ishii?
Marty, that 2145 figure, if I'm a member of the Waconia Lions as an example, do you know how that compared to what their costs were previously? And maybe it's not a fair question because I know Lancer took care of the alcohol and things like that, I think, and the refreshments over there, and the Lions pretty much took care of the food, I think, and raffles, et cetera. But are you able to give us some idea of what it may have cost them? And maybe you don't know that, I don't know, but I'm just curious, or else you can find out and get back to me.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ishii, we would have to get back to you. Lancer's model was based on a percentage of gross sales
Right.
and not so much on a set fee. So where our system here differs, we have a set fee to cover our direct expenses. It is not based, and we are not receiving a percentage of gross sales.
And then one follow-up, if I could, Mr. Chair, thank you. I know we looked at the Cologne Community Center, and I just don't remember the figure that they charged a daily rate, so to speak. Do you know what that was?
Not right offhand, but I can get that to you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner
I
Ishii.
just don't recall what it was. I thought it was 1,500 or 1,600.
That would be
I'm not
part of
sure.
the comparative rates that we would be
Yeah, we
talking
looked-
about.
We did see that, but I don't remember the figure.
Yeah, I just don't have that with me today, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Maluchnik?
Well, on piggybacking off Commissioner Ishii, and when you get some time, Marty, can you give me the breakdown on that daily rental fee? And you talked about the instrumental costs, custodial service, electricity, and all that. Can I take a look at that for me? Just send it to me, email
Sure.
it to me. I'd like to take a look at it. Okay.
And send it to the rest of the board, so we all have the same
Yeah, so we all have
information.
the same
Thank you.
information.
Yes.
Other question, Commissioner? Commissioner Workman, anything? Commissioner Lynch? It's not a public hearing, but I will give you the latitude. Do you have a question?
For 30 years, I worked for an incentive travel group, and just to make a note, if our people, our coordinators were doing this, they would probably, I don't know, how many people can fit into that facility?
Ask the question to me.
Okay,
and we'll
how
try
many
to-
people can fit into the facilities?
I think the understanding I would have would be around 1,000.
1,000, okay. So if we were doing this, travel incentive group, you would take the $2,145 per day and say it was 300 people, then you would say the PAX would be paying, or the guest would be paying $7.15 per person. You know, it's an easier way to think about what you're purchasing, and as that goes up, it makes more sense. You could break it out, and what they did is they always said too is, you go lump sum like this, they go, if you go per person,
Right.
for event, whatever it is, it doesn't choke them off. It's a very, very good incentive. And then I was going to say too, is has anybody reached out to the wineries and possibly give them a break? Like if they have, first of all, the music is kind of a troublesome thing. So in other words, if you could work out something with a winery, and the winery could talk to their people and say, okay, at 8 o'clock, we're gonna move down to the event center, and then they can say too, is this is what it's gonna cost you, but they can't pay $2,145. This would be one of those incentives to say too is, we are making the people happy, we are giving them a safe destination to be, and then that way what they can do is they can say, this is for a event for wineries because of the fact that we wanna make sure that they're residents and they have a great place to be. And another thing is, if you're going to sell this, you sell it as a event, actually a, you know, sort of like, we have the Lake Waconia, we have this and that. It's not like going to a ballroom or a place right in a city. You have exposure to a variety of things you could do, which could open it up to people that want to give pontoon rides or whatever it is. So what you're doing is you're moving out to another section of saying, what do you want? This is what we can give you and other people can't give you. And then the last thing is the fact that I'm wondering about the septic. Now that you own that much land, you can put in a septic now, right?
I'm not familiar with that end of it.
Okay, that would be one of the things that would be very important.
Thank you very much. Final comments, Marty? When will the public be impacted by the construction that might, or is going to take place?
Mr. Chair, our goal would be to be under construction next August, but we've got a lot of work to do
A
between
lot
now
of
and
work,
next
sounds like a
August.
public hearing is coming up.
Yeah.
Other final, Commissioner Maluchnik?
Well, I'm glad that you allowed the public to speak and gave them that latitude, because those are some very good points, and some of that stuff has been done, and I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I'm ready for a motion, and then providing I get a second, we could probably have discussion. That would be our.
We will have discussion if you get a second.
All right.
What's your motion?
My motion would be to authorize staff to accept reservations contingent on adoption and acceptance of the county board amended 2018 fee schedule for the following community events: the Veterans Memorial Registry, the Vintage Antique Snowmobile, the Lions Wild Game Feed, and the Ducks Unlimited Banquet, and the other events through July 31st, 2019. And also authorize the staff to purchase tables and chairs for chairs of 300 at a cost not to exceed $12,000 from the Waconia Event Center reserve funds, and to authorize a building study of the Waconia Event Center to include a facility/assessment/analysis and a market research for a cost not to exceed $17,500, funded by the Parks Department budget professional services.
Real comprehensive motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Maluchnik, second by Commissioner Ishii. Discussion. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Lynch?
If I could, I'd just like to invite everyone out to the Antique Snowmobile Show, and then the following weekend, they have the Waconia Lions do a wonderful, the Wild Game Dinner. It's absolutely wonderful, if you can get tickets.
Is that in the next month or so?
And it's like a couple weeks right after that.
Okay, thank you very much. We have the motion and a seconded. Any discussion, further discussion? Commissioner?
Just have one point of clarification. Looking back, actually, I got received a note. Cologne Community Center charges $1,600 a day.
Okay.
Just to compare. So I'd move forward with this motion as it's stated today, and if we need to review that, we can always come back and review that.
Commissioner Maluchnik?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Commissioner Ishii makes a good point that we have those daily costs, but we also have to understand there's a market to take in consideration. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And obviously, with that motion, you just listed a number of events that are already planned. That doesn't mean that's the only events that they're, if somebody's still interested, don't hesitate to contact the parks and get yourself registered.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the motion said other events through July 31st, 2019, and so I don't believe we would have to have a separate vote on any
No,
additional.
not at all, not at all. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Marty. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, 7.1, strategic plan for 2018-2019. Administrator Hemze will be presenting this. This is something that we've discussed in the past, and you
Yes,
bring
sir.
that to fruition.
As we do on an annual basis, Commissioners, and good morning, by the way, do this each year, we update our strategic plan, which is really a roadmap for our organization as we look into the future. So let me give you a very brief presentation this morning. I would like to thank you for the work that you've done on this. You came in at the tail end, of course, and that was a few weeks ago. We talked about the initiatives that we're laying out in the plan. Before that, the division directors worked with their managers, other employees. And I'd like to thank them. They put really the heavy lift into this document, which is, I think, very critical to our organization. And I also need to thank Nick Kaktavi, who does, in the end, the real work, putting the document together, packaging it up. He'll put it out on the website, all those other logistical pieces. So here's what we did. We reviewed our vision, mission, and goals. Those have been in place for a number of years, and I'll just pop those up in the next few slides. Here. But the meat of what we talked about was looking at challenges, opportunities, and relating those to our strategic plan. So we reviewed what we had in place, and then we updated the document. The detail is included in your packet, so there's several pages of information in your packet.
I think if a defensive coordinator saw that play, they would stop that.
What play is that? Looks like an end around. Quarterback keeper, maybe. I like it as a former quarterback. Okay, vision and mission. We didn't change these. We briefly talked about these items. We have these listed in a number of places, and we tend to maybe ignore them to some degree, but they're pretty critical to our organization as we look back on decisions that are being made. We try and incorporate the strategic plan in the boardroom on an every meeting basis. As you notice in your agenda, we put the goals, we list those and attach the action items to those, which really, to me, makes sense because the actions you're taking in the boardroom relate ultimately to those goals and the mission and our vision of the organization. And here are the goals that have been in place for a number of years. We did not change these either. These are the 5 goals. These, again, are listed in your agenda and other places. We tie our actions to these. And most importantly, again, we worked on the document. We talked about a number of initiatives. I'm not going to certainly go through them all, but just to give a few examples for flavoring here to make sure we all understand what we're generally talking about. For example, we talked about our Veteran Service Office. And one of the past accomplishments is we provided them with some new space. Some very nice, well-deserved space in the government center here. That space was a plan that was laid out a couple years ago, so that was done. And now we're looking into the future. We hired another staff person. So what the future will bring will be connecting that staff person and the existing staff to our veterans to do more continued outreach, to connect to those veterans, to provide them with the benefits they deserve. So a very good example of a goal that's in our plan that has evolved over time through space and staffing, et cetera, to provide ultimately better service to our veterans. Another example would be the Steiner Kelting Mental Wellness Facility. A couple of years ago, we talked about initiating a legislative initiative to track down some bonding dollars for that. That was successful. And now we're in the mode as we look ahead into the future of adding to that facility and opening it in 2019. In the spring, hopefully the spring, no later than the summer of 2019. So we're working on that. A third example would be introducing legislation to change the governance of the Met Council. A bit of a frustrating goal that's been on the plate for a number of years because we sort of reached the, speaking of football plays, reach the 5-yard line and get knocked out by the governor. So the governor vetoes what we have been proposing as a suburban county group, which of course has been to have appointed elected officials comprise the Met Council. But we want to keep that, as we look into the future, keep that in our strategic plan. One of the big events going on with the elections, of course, is the governor's race. That might be a game changer, potentially, for that particular initiative. Perhaps a new governor might see differently in terms of what we're proposing, so we're going to be keeping that on our list for 2019. A couple more. Obtaining a $1.5 million grant for Lake Waconia Parks. We just talked about that. And that's been part of this document for a number of years, upgrading the park, but that was a more specific goal to track down those funds. We asked for more than that, but we were happy to get that amount, and we thank our legislators for the work they did. That was a pretty heavy lift, a heavy request, and 1.5 million is quite a sum of money, especially when we match it to get $3 million. It won't do everything, but it'll do a lot to move forward with future plans for that park, and there are, again, other plans that will be coming in future updates of this document. Finally, maybe save the best for last, we've always had highways, road construction as one of the top priorities in the strategic plan document. One of the top projects was 101. We were successful in obtaining $9 million in funding for that. I'd like to especially thank Commissioners Maluchnik and Workman for serving on the legislative committee along with Claire Roebling, others, Lyndon Robgent, the city of Chanhassen officials. There's our legislators, of course. That was a significant team effort that went, and it wasn't necessarily just because it was in this document, but it was important to list that as a priority. We listed it not only in this document, but our legislative priorities document. We kept that really on the front burner, and in the end, it was a close call, I would say, and thankful to all of our legislators for helping that particular project become successful.
Commissioner Maluchnik.
Thank you, David. Just some information that I got Friday night, and Commissioner Workman certainly will be involved, all the commissioners, is that the U.S. DOT Secretary Elaine Chao will be coming out, and Congressman Emmer is going to do his best, and Lyndon's going to develop a proposal where we hope the Secretary will visit 212 and observe our plan, and we're trying to get our good friends out there at Baumgard to maybe host that, where she could take a look at the creamery. And so anyway, this is an event that I just learned about Friday, and I haven't been able to inform everybody, and I apologize for that. But anyway, because of the work that you just talked about, and of everybody on the board has worked on this issue, we might be able to get some attention from the U.S. DOT Secretary. So it's a job well done by everybody, and staff to include.
Thank you.
So.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Degler, I would agree, to put it in this document, showing it as a priority in multiple ways, to strategically think about how are we going to go after the funding for these projects. One of the other good examples is a half-cent sales tax. A few years ago, we put that as a potential vision in this document that ultimately was accomplished. Now we're working sort of in this next evolution of projects, including many of these state projects, which was a big part of the debate. That was a pretty significant decision that came through the boardroom to assist in funding of those projects. So it's not only 212, but 101 is a state road, by the way. It'll be turned back to us. 41, there's work going on that road right now. And that probably wouldn't happen, quite frankly, if it wasn't for many of the decisions that were made in this boardroom, and a lot of behind-the-scenes effort that I think this document is a lot more about just getting it on paper, verifying that we're all in agreement that these are top priorities that we have organizationally.
The decisions that we do make in this boardroom are always based on our strategic plan, and those 5 things that you list of their communities, cultures, connections, finances, and growth are listed on our agenda every time, and every item that we discuss falls under one of those categories. And we all see it on our agenda. I don't emphasize it when I introduce a board action item, but I just want everybody to know that we don't act on anything that doesn't fit into one of those categories.
So it's pretty simple, practical, and I think successful in the end. We don't want to overcomplicate this, make it too bureaucratic. And enough with the examples. The other details are listed in the packet. So the recommendation is to adopt that update, the 18 to 19 strategic plan, then we'll work on the communication side and send that out.
Any questions for Mr. Hemze?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Workman. Do we have a second? I will second that. Motion by Commissioner Workman, seconded by myself, to adopt the 2018-2019 strategic plan. Any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
you, Mr. Hemze.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lynch.
I'd make the motion to adjourn our regular session and convene as a Carver County Regional Rail Authority.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, seconded by Commissioner Ishii, to adjourn our regular session and reconvene as a regional rail. Any discussion? All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now are acting on the regional rail. Item number 1, under this topic, 8.1, a letter of support to Scott County, for the UP Trail Regional Solicitation application. Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Chair and members, we have a couple of partners, if you will, both Scott County and City of Chaska, that are requesting our letters of support or resolution of support regarding some trail projects. So with regards to Scott County, and you may recall, they were our partner in the purchasing of the former Union Pacific Railroad corridor. And the project that they are seeking funding for and submitting an application for is related to this Tier 2 RTBN, Regional Bikeway Transit Network, and Regional Trail. And so that project would begin in Carver, across the Minnesota River, and get to Merriam Junction, where there is a trailhead facility as a part of the, I believe it's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's a project that's roughly 2 miles in length. Here's kind of an aerial image of that same trail alignment, if you will. Here's Carver, the Minnesota River, and then the former Union Pacific Railroad that extended over to Merriam Junction, and you can kind of see where the trailhead facility is proposed. So Scott County is looking for support in their application. It's consistent with our comprehensive plan. It's consistent with our regional parks policy plan. And in fact, we even have a master plan that says this is a good thing to do. And with regards to both Scott, and we did submit the master plan jointly, both Scott County and Carver County submitted the master plan jointly, and it does state that we'd work cooperatively to make that crossing of the Minnesota River. So the requested action here, Mr. Chair, is to support the letter for Scott County for the application.
Is there?
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of the application.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ishii, second by Commissioner Workman. Any discussion? My one question, Marty, why is Scott County taking the lead on that instead of us?
You know, they really see this as something that's, you know, in terms of connecting to the trails on the east side. I think you can kind of see the network of trails that are on our side of the border. They see this as a great way to get across. I also believe that they see this as their first segment of this Tier 2 trail corridor, which they have obviously prioritized for their purposes. And then there's what I'll say is the neat, cool places you get to go there. The DNR property, U.S. Fish and Wildlife property, you get to cross and you're next to the Minnesota River. It's kind of a cool thing.
And one other follow-up question is, how much of this trail is underwater right now?
That's a good question. I don't know that.
We have the motion and seconded. Commissioner Workman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that is a very important question. I think our concern for this is the bridge over the river at Carver, so I might almost slip right through Carver. I won't stop at the Doghouse or Lisa's or Harvey's or other bars on my bicycle. But there is a very controversial piece of trail in the Minnesota River bottoms at Bloomington. And there's quite a bit of opposition, a lot of money. In fact, they tried to sneak some money out of the tab to finish. I think a legislator got $4 million. I think it's probably a $12 million deal. The fact of the matter is it's heavily used mountain bike trail down there. Let's call it by the ferry bridge down there. And so many of those bicyclists are wondering why now would we lay asphalt down on the river bottom when, if you look at the cottonwood trees, you can see how high that river gets often. And we all know what
what floodwater does to roads and trails and everything else like that. So those are some kind of important questions. I gotta believe this thing does flood or would flood, and I'm wondering, are we gonna get in the same trouble? I know Thursday night they have a ride down there that I might go on to listen to people a little closer, but a big ride out of Penn Cycle to go look at this. So, I'm excited about this. I'd be excited about the trail. Maybe it's not gonna be asphalt.
Mr. Chair, members, I don't know the design details at this point in time, and perhaps they haven't been fully determined. But I imagine that they would, with regards to investment, work to keep what they can out of the floodplain area. Maybe, as you're saying, Mr. Commissioner, is to choose a surfacing that is suitable for that space.
At this point, it's still in the planning stage, so that might be a premature question, but Commissioner Williams.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I am interested in this, and I'm, of course, in full support. And I do want to thank Marty for answering a lot of really tough questions today, so, a variety of matters.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Maluchnik.
Well, I'm glad that Commissioner Workman brought up that particular project in the river bottoms by Bloomington. I led the fight to suppress those funds from the tab, and I'm always concerned in a floodplain when we put asphalt down for a trail, and like I said, this hasn't been determined yet. And the mountain bike people deserve a place to ride also. The claim seems to be from the disability community and the handicapped folks who want to get down there and appreciate the wilderness, one of the largest urban wild areas, river wild areas in the country, and yet I always think that they could do the pavement above the floodplain and still have that, a multi-use situation and still have the trail down there for the mountain bike folks and the folks that would appreciate the trail that isn't paved. So, and you have the buckling, I know over in Scott County, I believe just across the river from our location, that's flooded a great deal in the springtime, many times, in fact, every year, I believe. And you can see some of the pavement there is buckling due to frost lines and things like that. So I'm always concerned when we put pavement down below the floodplain. So it's not a good public policy in my opinion. But I thank Commissioner Workman for bringing up that, and it has been a battle for what, over 20 years with the legislature, Commissioner Workman, even when you were there, I believe. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A great discussion. Obviously, this is just the first step to getting support for this trail, and we will hear more if they're successful. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8.2 now is a resolution to support the regional solicitation funding for the city of Chaska's Circle the Brick Trail Connection. Marty.
Again, Mr. Chair and County Board members, this is a section also of the Union Pacific Railroad corridor extending from Athletic Park in Chaska, going through the downtown area of Chaska, all the way over to our Audubon Road here, if you will. So this is
Let me assure you, this will not flood.
It should not flood, that's correct.
If it does, a lot of us are in trouble.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's not a problem. But anyhow, it too is about a 2-mile segment of trail. It is unlike the previous trail that I just shown. This one is just an RTBN, Regional Bikeway Transit Network Trail. It's a little different than the regional trail that we've had in the past. So this is the design or interest in this is more of a commuting route. It's not based so much on scenery as it is on more of a direct line to other trails, if you will. So the city of Chaska desires that. They are proposing a box culvert here underneath Highway 41 to facilitate traffic underneath that highway near our County Road 62. And so again, that's kind of the general alignment. It follows our existing railroad corridor. It is consistent with the city of Chaska's plans. It's consistent with the stated purposes of why we purchased the railroad corridor. It's consistent with the regional policy for the Regional Bikeway Transit Network. And then again, Mr. Chair, the requested action here is to support the resolution.
Commissioner Maluchnik.
Motion to adopt the resolution to authorize and support the city of Chaska's FY 2022-23 regional solicitation application for the Circle the Brick Trail connection.
And I will second that. Thank you very much.
Discussion.
Discussion. Commissioner Maluchnik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a long time in the planning. Marty's staff has done a great job, and I'd like to thank the Chaska staff. I think this is very sound public policy, both connecting connecting to our regional trail system, and I think it's, I'm glad to see this finally come into
And this
position.
will get a lot of use, no question about it.
Well, it's a good investment, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Marty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to adjourn the Carver County Regional Rail.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ishii, second by Commissioner Lynch to adjourn as a regional rail. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned, that's right. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.